It's the iconic theme music that just gets stuck in your brain. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, released in 1981 and directed by the one and only Steven Spielberg. Starring Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ronald Lacey, and John Rhys Davies. Production cost of $18 million, domestic take of $248 million, an international take $141 million, for a worldwide total of $390 million, and a total profit of $372 million, not including marketing and all associated costs. Characters. This one has some iconic characters. You've got the definitive adventurous hero, the not-so-in-distress damsel, pair of villains you can really enjoy hating, and a high-quality support character. What can you say about Indiana Jones that hasn't already been said? It's a legendary character played by a legendary actor. It's an amazingly memorable role, portraying the heroic adventurer at its best. He's tough, but he can be hurt a lot. He's smart and he's clever, but he's also fallible. He's got a plan, he's got all the drive, he's got all the grit to get it done. At the same time, he doesn't always win. In fact, he rarely wins. One of my favorite things about this character is he spends the whole movie scrambling to get ahead. And it was good. Marion was great. She's a love interest. She's feisty. She'll fight you. She's a little bit damsel in distress in this movie, but at the same time, you know, given the chance, she'll probably knife you. There's a not too inaccurate comparison that can be made here. John Rhys Davies is an enjoyable, lovable character in this movie. He is just a support character, yes, but he does such a solid job. You really enjoy seeing on screen. He really actually feels like one of Indiana's best mates. One of these people he'll go and get in trouble with. As for the villains, they weren't that deep, they weren't that developed, but you really got to dislike them. They weren't stupid and they often held all the cards. So they felt like a suitable challenge for Indiana to navigate in saving the day and saving the princess. I forgot to mention that Alfred Molina turns up in the opening sequence. Doc Ock makes his appearance. I recognized him immediately. I thought that was very, very cool to see his character there. My wife really liked the nasty henchman with the little high squeaky voice in the black trench coat that got his hand all burnt up. All in all, the main characters were fantastic. All the support characters did their job and the villains were despisable. I quite enjoyed it. Giving the characters a score of 4 should come as no surprise to anybody. Story is a stereotypical grand adventure. There's a MacGuffin. Everybody wants said MacGuffin. You got experts on this side. You got experts on that side. You got the big bad guys bankrolling a massive industrious effort. Meanwhile, the plucky underdog heroes are running in there and doing the best they can with the limited resources and, of course, pulling it off. It's the treasure hunt followed by the treasure chase, because just when they get it, it's then snatched away from them. Again, seems to be a bit of a habit for Indy. And then it's a whole convoluted winding story to go and get it back. Full of action sequences and chases, fairly interesting dialogue. Almost a double cross in there. I thought there was going to be a double cross coming, but there wasn't. The good guys are chased and captured, then they escape, then they're captured, then they escape. You know, it's a kind of ongoing thing, culminating in a final showdown that actually gets him captured again, with a big set piece finale at the end, and it goes very badly for them. It goes biblically badly for them, actually. And funnily enough, the only reason Indy and Marion actually survive it is because he decides, you know what, maybe I will take this seriously just this once, and closes his eyes. It's an engaging, exciting adventure that takes you all over the place and runs through the whole spectrum of predictable yet very enjoyable movie beats, and all wraps up with you wanting more. You want the next story, you want the next chapter. It did slow down every now and then. There are a couple of choices that I just don't understand, like why didn't the submarine submerge? Indy rode on the back of that thing all the way to the island. Why didn't the U-boat go underwater? That would have made sense, but I don't know. Doesn't really matter, I suppose. And as it was pointed out once on a show that I don't particularly enjoy, without Indiana Jones being there, the story would have pretty much resolved itself all the same. The ark would have been opened and all the bad guys would have died. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, there's a couple little nagging things in there, which will result in a score of 3.75. Still, very good time. Look and feel. Okay, first of all, how good is the music in this? John Williams is a legend. He's so good at this sort of thing. It's sweeping and it's grand and it matches the scenarios most of the time. The only time I found it out of place was in the running around in Cairo, with the chase scenes with Marion's in the basket, the dude with the sword getting shot. You know, that whole sequence? The music was all kind of goofy and happy and funny, while this sword fight, punch up, people getting shot in the head, cars running off the road, all that sort of stuff's going on. It was kind of goofy music every now and then. That was weird to me. I also really enjoyed their excessive and excellent use of shadowing. There were shadows, and they did a lot of their storytelling through shadows on the wall, shadows on the ground, silhouettes and glimpsed images. They did a really, really good job, and they utilized their lighting as best they could as well. That whole style of presentation and storytelling works a treat in this sort of movie, and it's perfect for this. On the flip side, the CGI effects have obviously not aged well. They're, by today's standards, terrible. But that's no surprise. You can't really hold it against the movie because you're watching an older film. The technology just wasn't available to them at that stage, or if it was prohibitively expensive. Remember that this was done for $18 million, and for that, it's incredible. Having said that, some of the storm effects, the lightning effects, and the holy fire and all that sort of weird stuff, yeah, that was, I could have done without that. Honestly, I remember not liking that the first time I saw it when I was much, much younger. But still, what you gonna do? So Look and Feel also gets a 3.75. This is a classic, iconic, if not cheesy, action-adventure movie that sets itself up as a template for so many knockoffs and follow-on style movies. Like, so many of them. The Librarian movies and Relic Hunter TV series with Tia Carrere. Yeah, that's a very good example of that. You should check out Relic Hunter. Script and dialogue. Much to my surprise, you really had to pay attention in this one. You had to be able to focus on what was being said, to whom, and about what. Particularly in the opening scenario when they're talking about other adventures that have gone before them, and they keep bumping into the bodies of the guys that died beforehand. That was clever. Wouldn't have made any sense if you weren't listening to the first part. They also throw around a lot of names and places very quickly, and they don't have a lot of supporting graphics to show it off. They don't have big maps showing where they are. They don't have locations, props, or flashbacks. What they've got is a couple of people sitting in a big auditorium around a large desk, throwing names, places, dates, times, and ideas, actions, factions, geographical locations. They're just chucking them all at you. You gotta pay attention. You gotta be a little quick. I'm gonna go and say 70% of the dialogue in this movie works. 70% of it is timed very well, executed perfectly. The other 30%, just kind of weird stuff, just kind of out of place comments or scenarios or situations. The whole thing in the tent, the Frenchman's tent, where you've got Marion tied up and then they get drunk together and she's going to try and break out, but they get really kind of like tanked and they get laughing too much for her to make a proper escape. That was weird. Why not just stab the guy and run? The villain dialogue and their character acting throughout the movie, nicely done. Again, kind of over the top, very villain-esque, very mustache twirling villainy, but at the same time, it kind of needed that. You needed that sort of level of pomp and foolishness from the villains to really buy into it, and they delivered. The stunt work and the choreography, pretty good. Every now and then it felt like the 80s. You could see the steps being taken to make sure the guy lands on the mattress that happens to be covered in sand. Doesn't really matter because the whole movie kind of felt like that. At the end of the day though, everything knitted together nicely, everything presented itself coherently and consistently. As a result, script and dialogue is getting a 3.5. Any errors or problems or issues you have with the film are pretty much overridden by all the really good stuff. Fun factor, well, hey, no surprise, I had a really good time with this. I've always enjoyed this movie. I've always enjoyed Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's always been a classic, it's an iconic one, and it's always the one that you measure other adventure movies up to. Have you noticed that? If you watch any other adventure movie, you've got this movie sitting in your brain and you're judging everything they do against this one. Probably why many of the adventure movies that came out after this really didn't do so well, because you're holding them up here somewhere. The benchmark's here and everyone's coming in a fair bit below. It's a movie that was so much fun and so popular that it managed to survive a less than stellar sequel that followed it. I suppose I'm going to have to go and watch that as well, just to review it for completionism, but I'll be honest, not so keen. Anyhow, fun factor, had a great time, always have a good time. I'll be giving this one a 3.75 as well. It's a truly memorable movie, and for once, nostalgia actually holds true. Final score, add them all together and you get yourself an 18.75. Needless to say, I highly recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. I can't imagine many people haven't, but hey, you never know. There's quite a few very popular movies out there that I've never watched. Harry Potter, for example. Yeah. I probably shouldn't have admitted that online. Anyway, I had a blast, and as I've said many times, this is an iconic movie, a classic of its genre and the time period. And the fact that there's a few Star Wars sound effects in this film always entertains me. Anyhow, there you go. That's my review of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Please like, share and subscribe. Hope you've had a great time. Hope you're having a great week. And as always, make some time to go watch a movie.